She stared at the ultrasound image in her hands, black and white proof of something she'd never asked for, and felt her throat close. Not from joy, from fear, but the room was already celebrating. Before you go any further, hit that like button right now. This story isn't like the others. It's going to shake you. And if you care about the truth behind closed doors, you need to subscribe. Trust me on this one. They've been married for exactly 2 years when the test came back positive. 2 years of questions disguised as care. 2 years of watching her mother-in-law's face fall every time the answer was not yet. 2 years of her husband changing the subject when his friends asked about kids. His silence somehow louder than words. The wedding had been flawless. String lights and champagne toasts. Her dress fit like it was drawn onto her body. His vows made people cry. She remembered standing at the altar thinking, this is supposed to be the beginning of my life. What she didn't know then was that everyone else had already written the next chapter for her. The reception hadn't even ended before it started. An aunt cornered her near the dessert table, one hand on her champagne glass, the other already reaching for her stomach like it was community property. So when are we hearing the pitter-patter? She laughed, not because it was funny, but because silence would have been worse. Her husband's college roommate toasted them during the speeches. Here's to the future Mr. and Mrs. Can't wait to meet the little ones. The room erupted. She looked at her husband. He was grinning. He raised his glass. She lifted hers too, her smile so practiced it didn't even feel like lying anymore. That night, in the hotel room, she'd brought it up. Carefully. The way you approach a conversation when you already know the answer might hurt. Everyone's really excited about the future. He was loosening his tie, half distracted. Yeah, they love us. I mean about kids. Specifically. He stopped, turned, smiled that soft smile that made her fall for him in the first place. Well, yeah, eventually. Why? She hesitated. This was the moment. The opening. I don't know if I want that. Or when. Or. He kissed her forehead before she could finish. You're just nervous. It's normal. His voice was warm, certain, final. We don't have to think about it now. Except they were thinking about it. Everyone was thinking about it. Everyone except her. Here's what nobody tells you about marriage. It's not just between two people. It's between two families, two sets of expectations, two futures that were planned before you ever showed up. And if you deviate from the script, you're not just disappointing your partner. You're dismantling someone else's dream. By month 6, the comments weren't subtle anymore. Her mother-in-law started tagging her in Facebook posts about grandchildren. Can't wait for this season of my life, with pictures of baby shoes and nursery designs. At Sunday dinners, the conversation would drift toward friends who were expecting, cousins who just announced, neighbors whose kids were finally making them grandparents. Her husband would squeeze her hand under the table. Solidarity, she thought at first. Later, she realized it was something else. A reminder. We're on the same side here. Don't make this weird. She tried bringing it up again. Month 9. They were folding laundry, his t-shirts, her jeans, the mundane choreography of shared life. Do you ever think maybe we should talk about timelines? He didn't look up. For what? Kids. Now he looked up. His face was patient, like she was a child who didn't understand the rules of a game everyone else had already mastered. Babe, we're married. It's the next step. Why are you overthinking this? I'm not overthinking. I'm just not sure You're not sure? Or you're scared? His tone shifted, still gentle but edged now. Because fear is normal. My mom was terrified before she had me. Every woman is. There it was. Every woman. As if her uncertainty was a universal condition, not a personal truth. She folded a towel. Then another. What if I don't want them at all? The room changed. He put down the shirt he was holding. Are you serious right now? I'm asking. We talked about this before we got married. No. You talked about it. I listened. His jaw tightened. So what? You were lying the whole time. I wasn't lying. I just wasn't sure. I'm still not sure. He stood up, walked to the window. When he turned back, his face was different. Hurt, yes, but also something colder. My mom's going to be devastated. Now I'll be devastated. Now we need to figure this out together. My mom. And there it was. The truth underneath the love. She wasn't just married to him. She was married to an idea that belonged to people who weren't even in the room. If this is hitting different, drop a comment below. Have you ever felt pressured into a decision that wasn't yours? Let's talk about it. And don't forget to share this. Someone you know needs to hear this story. Year 2 arrived like a deadline. Her mother-in-law started sending articles. New study shows fertility drops after 30. Why waiting too long can be dangerous. The links came with heart emojis, as if catastrophizing her body was an act of care. At a family barbecue, her husband's brother announced his wife's pregnancy. The backyard exploded with joy. Hugs, tears, phone calls to relatives who couldn't make it. She stood on the edge of the celebration, holding a paper plate, watching her mother-in-law cry actual tears of happiness. Later, when the crowd thinned, her mother-in-law found her by the dessert table. She wrapped an arm around her waist, the kind of touch that feels affectionate until you realize you can't step away. You see how beautiful this is, she said, her voice thick with emotion. This is what family looks like. It's wonderful, she said, because what else could she say? You know, I've been praying for you too. Her grip tightened just slightly. I know it hasn't happened yet, but it will. God's timing is perfect. She didn't say we're not trying. She didn't say I'm not sure I want this. Because the weight of disappointing this woman, who had welcomed her, loved her, treated her like a daughter, felt heavier than the weight of losing herself. Instead, she said, "Thank you." And her mother-in-law smiled, relieved, victorious. I knew you'd come around. That night, her husband crawled into bed beside her. They hadn't fought in weeks, but they hadn't really talked either. The silence had become its own language. You okay? He asked. Yeah. My mom really loves you, you know. I know. He rolled closer. His hand found her hip. She's just excited. She's wanted to be a grandmother for so long. I know. So maybe we stop overthinking it. Maybe we just see what happens. Her body went rigid. See what happens. Yeah, like stop preventing it. Let nature take its course. That's not seeing what happens. That's trying. It's the same thing. It's not. He sighed. Pull back. Why do you have to make everything so complicated? She stared at the ceiling. Because it is complicated. For me. It doesn't have to be, but it did. It was. And the fact that he couldn't see that, wouldn't see that, made her feel more alone than she'd ever felt in her life. Here's what people don't understand about coercion. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it hums. It shows up in soft voices and patient smiles and the slow, steady rewriting of your reality until you can't remember what you wanted in the first place. 3 months later, she stopped taking her birth control. Not because she wanted to, but because the exhaustion of resisting had finally outweighed the fear of surrender. She told herself it might not happen right away, that she'd have time to figure it out, that maybe, if it did happen, she'd feel differently. Love, after all, has a way of convincing you that your instincts are wrong. When the test came back positive, she sat on the bathroom floor for 20 minutes, staring at the 2 pink lines, waiting for joy to arrive. It didn't. What came instead was a wave of something she couldn't name. Not quite grief, not quite panic, something in between. The feeling of watching a door close behind you and realizing too late that you'd never actually agreed to walk through it. She told her husband that night. His face lit up like she'd just given him the greatest gift in the world. He pulled her into his arms, laughing, crying, calling his mother before she could even process what was happening. Within an hour, the family group chat was flooded. congratulations, prayers, excitement. Her mother-in-law called, sobbing with joy. I knew it. I knew God would answer. Everyone was so happy. Everyone except the woman carrying the child. And when she tried to smile, try to match their energy, their certainty, their relief, all she could think was, what have I done? Because here's the thing they don't tell you about pressure. By the time you realize it was never really a choice, it's already too late to go back. If you're not subscribed yet, do it now. You don't want to miss what happens next. The doctor's office smelled like antiseptic and unspoken dread. She sat on the exam table, paper crinkling beneath her, while her husband held her hand. He was scrolling through his phone with the other, texting updates to his mother. She watched his thumbs move across the screen, fast, confident, announcing a future that hadn't been confirmed yet. The doctor walked in with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. That's when she knew. 22 weeks. That's how far along she was when everything changed. The first half of the pregnancy had been textbook. Morning sickness that made her hate the smell of coffee. Exhaustion that felt like drowning. Her body doing things she'd never agreed to, reshaping itself for a future everyone else had chosen. But she played the part, smiled at the baby shower, let her mother-in-law rub her belly at Sunday dinners, listened to advice from women who'd never asked if she wanted their advice in the first place. Sleep now while you still can. Enjoy this time. It goes so fast. You're glowing. She wasn't glowing. She was disappearing. But the scan at 22 weeks was supposed to be routine. Just another checkpoint. Another confirmation that the script was being followed correctly. Except the ultrasound tech's face changed halfway through. Her smile faltered. She excused herself, said she needed to get the doctor, said it with the kind of forced calm that makes your blood pressure spike. Her husband squeezed her hand. I'm sure it's nothing. But she knew. Some part of her, the part that had been screaming since the positive test, knew that nothing about this had ever been nothing. The doctor sat down, folded his hands, used the voice medical professionals reserve for delivering news that will rearrange someone's life. There's a complication. Her husband leaned forward. What kind of complication? A placental condition. It's rare but serious. If the pregnancy continues, there's significant risk to her health. The room tilted. She felt her breath catch, her heart hammer against her ribs. How significant? Her husband asked. The doctor looked at her now, really looked at her. Severe preeclampsia, potential organ damage. In worst-case scenarios, stroke, seizures, or he paused. We need to discuss all options. Options. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Termination is one of them. Given the severity and the timing, it's still legally and medically possible. It would eliminate the risk to you entirely. Her husband's hand went rigid in hers. The word hung in the air like smoke. Termination. Clinical. Sterile. A word designed to avoid the weight of what it actually meant. What about the baby? Her husband asked, his voice strained. The fetus is currently developing normally, the doctor said carefully. But if we continue, the risks compound. Blood pressure issues, potential seizures, kidney failure. There's also a risk of maternal death. Maternal death. She felt the floor drop out from under her. But people survive preeclampsia, right? Her husband wasn't asking her. He was asking the doctor. Like it's manageable. Sometimes. With close monitoring, early delivery, and luck. But this is severe. And it's early. The longer the pregnancy continues, the more dangerous it becomes. Her husband turned to her. His face was pale, but his eyes were already calculating. We need to talk about this. As a family. As a family. Not as a couple. Not what do you want. As a family. And she knew, right then, in that sterile room with the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, that her voice was already being erased. This channel exists so these stories don't stay buried. If you believe women deserve choice without pressure, subscribe. If this story reminded you of someone you know, share it. And if you've ever felt this kind of pressure yourself, leave a comment. You're not alone here. They didn't talk about it in the car. Her husband drove in silence, his jaw tight, his hands gripping the wheel like it might escape. She stared out the window, watching the world blur past, feeling like she was trapped inside someone else's life. When they got home, he told her to rest, said he needed to make some calls. She lay down on the couch, staring at the ceiling, her hand on her stomach, feeling the small flutter of movement that had started a few weeks ago. She didn't hate it. That was the cruelest part. She didn't hate the life growing inside her. She just hated that it was killing her. Slowly, literally. An hour later, she heard voices in the kitchen. Her husband, his mother. She hadn't even heard her arrive. She sat up, her body heavy, her head pounding. She's scared, her husband was saying. The doctor gave her options, and now she's overthinking it. Options. Her mother-in-law's voice was sharp. What options? A pause. Then quieter, ending it. The silence that followed was so loud it hurt. Absolutely not. Her mother-in-law's voice was steel. That baby is family. That baby is my grandchild. You don't just... She stopped, like the words were too obscene to finish. I know, Mom. I know. But the doctor said there are risks. There are always risks. I had risks with you. Every woman faces risks. That's what we do. We endure. She felt something crack inside her chest. We endure. Not we choose. Not we decide what's right for our own bodies. We endure. She stood up, her legs shaking, and walked into the kitchen. They both turned. Her mother-in-law's face softened immediately, her eyes wet with tears. Oh, sweetheart. She crossed the room, pulling her into a hug she didn't ask for. I heard. I'm so sorry you're going through this. I'm scared, she whispered. I know you are. Her mother-in-law pulled back, holding her face in both hands. But you're strong, stronger than you know, and God doesn't give us more than we can handle. She wanted to scream, wanted to say, what if I don't want to handle it? What if I want to choose my own life? But her husband was watching. His mother was watching. And the weight of their love, their hope, their expectations pressed down on her like gravity. The doctor said it's serious. She tried again. Doctors always say that. Her mother-in-law's voice was gentle but firm. They have to cover themselves legally. But miracles happen every day. And this baby, she placed a hand on her stomach, proprietary and sure. This baby is already a miracle. I've been praying for this for so long. But what if something happens to me? Her mother-in-law smiled. Sad, sympathetic, but unwavering. Then we'll take care of you. That's what family does. But that baby needs you right now. And I know, you're going to be an incredible mother. She looked at her husband. His face was torn, conflicted, but when his mother glanced at him, he nodded. Agreement. Solidarity. She was outnumbered. I need time to think, she said, her voice barely audible. Of course. Her mother-in-law hugged her again. Take all the time you need. But just remember, you're not alone in this. We're all here. We all love you. And we're going to love that baby. Here's the thing about being loved by a lot of people at once. It can feel like being buried alive. Because when everyone wants the same thing from you, and that thing costs you everything, how do you say no without becoming the villain? That night, she lay in bed next to her husband. He was asleep, his breathing steady, unburdened. She stared at the ceiling, her hand on her stomach, feeling the weight of a decision that was supposed to be hers but had already been made by everyone else. The doctor's words echoed in her head. Significant risk. Organ damage. Maternal death. Her mother-in-law's words overlapped them. We endure. You're strong. God doesn't give us more than we can handle. She wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe she could survive this. That love would be enough. That her fear was just fear and not instinct. But Deep down, in the part of her that still remembered who she was before the wedding, before the pressure, before the pregnancy, she knew. This wasn't a choice. It never had been. Drop a comment if you've ever been in a situation where everyone else's opinion drowned out your own. Because this is just the beginning. The next morning, she called the doctor's office. Her husband was at work. Her mother-in-law had gone home. She sat alone in the kitchen, the phone heavy in her hand, the number already pulled up on the screen. She could do it. She could make the appointment. She could choose herself. But then she thought about her husband's face, her mother-in-law's tears, the family group chat that had been flooded with joy when the pregnancy was announced, the baby shower invitations already ordered, the nursery her mother-in-law had started planning. She thought about being the woman who chose herself over the baby, the woman who disappointed everyone, the woman who broke the family's heart. And she hung up. Instead, she texted her husband, "I want to keep trying. Let's do whatever the doctor recommends to keep us both safe." His response came immediately. "I love you so much. You're so brave. We're going to get through this together." She stared at the words. Together. Except she was the only one whose body was on the line. She was the only one who would pay the price if things went wrong. But she'd already learned. In a room full of people who love you, sometimes your voice is the only one that doesn't count. The appointments became weekly, then twice weekly. Blood pressure checks, urine tests, monitoring for protein levels, swelling, vision changes. The doctor's face grew more serious with each visit, but he kept saying the same thing. "We're managing it. For now. For now." Two words that felt like a ticking clock. Her body started betraying her in small ways. Headaches that wouldn't quit. Swelling in her hands and feet that made her wedding ring cut into her skin. A constant, low-grade nausea that had nothing to do with morning sickness and everything to do with fear. But every time she brought it up, her husband squeezed her hand and said, "You're doing great. Just a little longer." Her mother-in-law visited twice a week now, bringing meals, offering encouragement, talking about the future like it was guaranteed. "When a baby comes, we'll need to set up a schedule. I could take mornings, you'll need your rest. And I already found the perfect stroller." She nodded, smiled, let the words wash over her. Because what was the alternative? To say I'm terrified? To say I don't think I'm going to survive this? They'd just tell her she was being dramatic. That fear was normal, that every mother goes through this. Except every mother doesn't face organ failure. Every mother doesn't wake up in the middle of the night feeling like her head is going to explode. At 32 weeks, she woke up to blurred vision. She blinked, rubbed her eyes, but the world stayed soft around the edges, like looking through frosted glass. "Babe." She shook her husband awake. "Something's wrong." He sat up, groggy. "What?" "I can't see right." He turned on the light, looked at her face. "Your eyes look fine, but I can't. Everything's blurry. It's probably just tired. You didn't sleep well." "No, it's not. Let's just wait until morning. If it's still bad, we'll call the doctor." But she knew. She already knew. This was the beginning of the end. And everyone around her was still pretending it wasn't. By morning, the blurred vision hadn't cleared. It had worsened. Her husband drove her to the hospital, his hands shaking on the wheel for the first time since this whole thing started. The nurses took her blood pressure. Their faces changed. They called for the doctor. He walked in, looked at the numbers, and said the word she'd been dreading for months. "We need to deliver. Now." Her husband's face went white. "Now? But it's too early. If we don't, she could seize. Or worse." She felt the room spin, felt her body go numb, felt the last shred of control slip through her fingers like water. "What about the baby?" her husband asked. The doctor hesitated. "The baby has a good chance, but we need to prioritize her life first." Her husband looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in months, She saw doubt flicker across his face. "What do you want?" he whispered, and she almost laughed. Because what she wanted had stopped matching the moment she said yes to everyone else. "Just save whoever you can," she said, because at this point, she wasn't even sure she counted anymore. What happened next would change everything, and no one was prepared for the cost. If you're not subscribed, you're going to lose this story. Help this story reach the people who need to hear it. Like, subscribe, share. Pressure thrives in silence. Awareness breaks it. Someone needs to see this. She woke up to a world that didn't make sense. The ceiling was wrong. The sounds were wrong. Her body, what was left of it, was wrong. Someone was crying. Not her. She couldn't cry yet. Her brain was still trying to catalog what was missing. If you're just finding this story, stop. Go back to chapter 1. You need the full context to understand what's about to happen. This isn't entertainment. This is a warning. The delivery had been chaos. She remembered fragments. The rush of bodies and scrubs. Monitors screaming. Her husband's face, pale and terrified, disappearing as they wheeled her away. The anesthesiologist's voice, calm and clinical, count backward from 10. She'd made it to 7. When she woke up, the room was too bright. Fluorescent lights stabbed into her skull. She tried to move, to sit up, but her body wouldn't respond the way it should. Everything felt heavy, distant, like she was piloting a machine she didn't know how to operate. Her husband was standing at the foot of the bed. His eyes were red. He'd been crying. That's when she knew something was catastrophically wrong. "Hey," his voice cracked. "You're awake." She tried to speak. Her throat was raw, her mouth dry. "What happened?" He moved closer, his hand reaching for hers. She couldn't feel it. Not really. Just pressure. Abstract and far away. "You had a seizure during delivery. Then your blood pressure." He stopped, his jaw working like he was chewing glass. They had to make some quick decisions. The baby, healthy, perfect. She's in the NICU, but the doctors say she's going to be fine. She, a daughter. She waited for the joy to come, the relief, the maternal instinct everyone had promised would override everything else. It didn't come. And me, his face crumpled. He looked away, toward the window, anywhere but at her. "You're alive. That's what matters." But the way he said it, the way his voice broke on the word alive, told her everything his mouth wouldn't. The doctor came in an hour later. He was the same one from the 22-week appointment, the one who'd offered her an option that everyone else had erased. He looked older now, tired, like this outcome had aged him too. He sat down, folded his hands, used that same careful voice. "I need to be direct with you about what happened and what we had to do to save your life." Her husband stood beside the bed, his hand still in hers, though she couldn't feel it anymore. "During delivery, you developed HELLP syndrome, a severe complication of preeclampsia. Your liver started failing. Your platelets dropped dangerously low. You seized, and then you had a massive stroke." The words landed like punches, each one harder than the last. "We managed to stabilize you, but the stroke caused significant damage. You've lost most of the vision in both eyes. What remains is severely limited. Peripheral only, and it may not improve." The room tilted. She tried to focus on his face, but everything was gray and blurred at the edges. She thought the blurriness was temporary. Medication, swelling, something fixable. It wasn't. And the doctor's voice dropped. "The blood flow complications and subsequent clotting required emergency intervention. We had to amputate both legs below the knee to prevent systemic infection and septic shock." The silence that followed was so absolute it felt like the world had stopped spinning. "Both." Her voice didn't sound like hers. It sounded like it was coming from underwater. "I'm so sorry. We did everything we could, but it was a choice between your life and your limbs." Her husband made a sound, something between a sob and a gasp. His hand squeezed hers harder, but she still couldn't feel it. She looked down, saw the blanket lying flat where her legs should have been, saw the absence, the void, the empty space where her body used to exist. And something inside her, something fundamental, just broke. If this story is making you feel something, comment below. Tell me if you've ever sacrificed yourself for people who didn't protect you. And subscribe, because this story isn't over, and you need to see how it ends. Her mother-in-law arrived that afternoon. She walked in holding the baby, tiny, pink, wrapped in a hospital blanket. Her face was radiant, glowing, the kind of joy that belongs to someone whose dream just came true. "Look at her," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "She's perfect, absolutely perfect." She brought the baby closer, leaning over the bed so she could see. But she couldn't see. Not really. Just shapes, the blur of a face, the suggestion of life. Do you want to hold her? No, she didn't. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw something. She wanted to rewind time to that doctor's office at 22 weeks and choose differently. But instead, she said, "I can't. I'm too weak." Her mother-in-law's smile faltered for just a moment, then recovered. "That's okay. You'll have plenty of time. You just rest." She sat down in the chair beside the bed, cradling the baby, cooing softly. "You did it. You gave us this beautiful miracle. I'm so proud of you." Proud. The word felt obscene. Her husband stood at the window, his back to them, his shoulders shaking slightly. "She's got your nose," her mother-in-law continued, oblivious or uncaring. She couldn't tell which. "And look at those tiny fingers. Oh, we're going to spoil her so much." We, not you. We. Because the baby wasn't really hers anymore. She'd been the vessel, the incubator, the sacrifice on the altar of everyone else's dream. And now that the baby was here, healthy, perfect, everything they'd wanted, she was just the wreckage left behind. That night, alone in her hospital room, she stared at the ceiling and tried to inventory what was left. Her sight, mostly gone. Her legs, gone. Her autonomy had never really been hers to begin with. She thought about the moments that had led here. The wedding reception, the soft pressure, the bathroom floor with the pregnancy test, the doctor's office at 22 weeks, the kitchen conversation with her mother-in-law. Every single moment, she'd had a choice. Technically, in every single moment, that choice had been buried under the weight of other people's love, other people's expectations, other people's certainty that they knew what was best for her. Her husband came back late, smelling like hospital cafeteria coffee and exhaustion. He pulled a chair up beside her bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm gone," she said. "Not like I'm dying. Not like I'm in pain. Like I'm gone." Because that's what it felt like. She was a ghost haunting her own body. He didn't know what to say to that. So he said nothing. Just sat there, staring at his hands. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Regret what?" "Pushing me to keep going. When a doctor gave us the option." His face twisted. Guilt and defensiveness fighting for control. "We didn't push you. It was your choice." "Was it?" "Yes." "Then why does it feel like everyone else decided for me?" He stood up, frustrated now. "That's not fair. We were all trying to support you. We all wanted what was best." "For who?" Her voice was louder than she intended. Louder than she'd been in months. "Best for who?" "Because it sure as hell wasn't best for me. You're alive. Our daughter is alive. That's what matters." "I'm alive," she repeated, the words bitter in her mouth. "Blind. No legs. But alive. So I guess everyone wins, right?" "Don't do this." "Do what?" "Tell the truth. You wanted this baby. Your mother wanted this baby. I wanted to survive. And look where we are." He sank back in a chair, his head in his hands. "The doctors said there was no way to know. The doctor at 22 weeks knew. He told us. He gave us an option. And everyone in my life, made sure I didn't take it. We didn't force you. You didn't have to. The silence between them was a living thing now, heavy and suffocating. Finally, he spoke. His voice was small, broken. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But sorry doesn't give you back your legs. Sorry doesn't restore your vision. Sorry doesn't undo the fact that you became a cautionary tale instead of a person. This is the part where I need you to share this video. Not for the algorithm. For the women who need to see this before it's too late. Hit that share button. Now, the next few days were a blur of specialists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, social workers. Everyone had advice. Everyone had a plan for her recovery. But recovery implies you're going back to something. What was she going back to? Her mother-in-law visited daily, always with the baby, always with that same radiant joy. She'd sit beside the bed and give updates. She slept for 3 hours straight last night. She's already so calm. Such an easy baby. That's good, she'd say, because what else could she say? The nursery is almost finished. I got the sweetest little mobile. It plays lullabies. And I found the most adorable onesies. Oh, you're gonna love dressing her up. Except she couldn't see her daughter clearly. Couldn't walk into the nursery. Couldn't do any of the things a mother is supposed to do. One afternoon, her mother-in-law finally acknowledged it. Sort of. I know this is hard, she said, her voice gentle, patronizing. But you're so strong, and we're all going to help you. You're not going to do this alone. Help me. Of course. With a baby, with recovery, with everything. That's what family does. And there it was. The unspoken agreement. She provided the baby. Now they take over. What if I can't do this? She whispered. Her mother-in-law smiled. Sad, sympathetic, but still certain. You can. You will. And honestly, she looked down at the baby in her arms, her voice dropping to something almost reverent. At least she's healthy. At least we have her. That's what really matters. At least. 2 words that erased everything she'd lost. At least the baby is fine. As if her body, her sight, her legs, her future was an acceptable price to pay for someone else's grandchild. She felt something crack then. Not break. She'd already broken. This was different. This was the moment she realized. No one was going to apologize. No one was going to admit they'd pushed her into this. No one was going to acknowledge that their dream had cost her everything. Because in their minds, she'd chosen this. And the baby was worth it. Everyone got what they wanted. Except her. Late that night, after everyone had gone home, a nurse came in to check her vitals. She was young. Kind eyes. She adjusted the 4, made sure the monitors were reading correctly. Then she paused, looked at her chart, looked at her. Can I ask you something? The nurse said quietly. Sure. Back at 22 weeks, when you had options, did you want to terminate? The question hung in the air like a confession. She didn't answer immediately, because the truth was complicated. The truth was buried under months of other people's voices. I don't know, she finally said. I never got the chance to figure it out. The nurse nodded, didn't judge, didn't pity, just understood. I'm sorry, she said. For what it's worth, I'm really sorry. And for the first time since she woke up, someone had apologized without a but attached to it. The nurse left. She stared at the ceiling, and she realized this was her life now. This was the cost of making everyone else happy. The only question left was, what was she going to do about it? Because here's what nobody tells you about survival. Sometimes living through something is harder than dying from it. And sometimes the people who love you the most are the ones who destroy you. If you're not subscribed, you're going to miss the conclusion. Don't let that happen. Hit subscribe. Drop a comment. Share this with someone who needs to see it. Because this story, it's not over yet. 3 months after the delivery, she sat in a wheelchair in a house that didn't feel like hers anymore, listening to her mother-in-law sing lullabies in the next room. The baby, her baby, technically was crying. Not distressed. just fussy. Normal baby sounds that mothers are supposed to find endearing. She felt nothing. Not love, not resentment, just a vast, echoing emptiness where a person used to be. If you know someone who says family pressure isn't that serious, send them this video. Like, subscribe, and share because silence protects the pressure, not the woman. Recovery, they called it. As if there was something to recover to. As if she could somehow circle back to the woman she'd been before the pregnancy, before the pressure, before she'd learned that her body was never really hers to begin with. The rehabilitation center had been clinical and efficient. Physical therapists teaching her how to transfer from bed to wheelchair. Occupational therapists helping her navigate a world designed for people with working legs and functional vision. Psychologists asking her how she was really doing, as if there were words big enough to describe this particular kind of erasure. She'd learned to move through space like a ghost. Slowly, carefully, always aware of the edges of things, the limits of her new reality. Her husband had tried. Give him that much. He'd taken family leave, hired help, converted the downstairs guest room into a bedroom because she couldn't manage stairs anymore. He'd held her when she cried, which was less often than people expected and more often than she wanted. But trying isn't the same as understanding. And understanding isn't the same as accountability. Her mother-in-law had moved in temporarily 2 weeks after they came home from the hospital. Just until you get your bearings, she'd said, already unpacking boxes in the upstairs guest room. Someone needs to help with the baby while you recover. Recover. That word again. Like she was healing from a flu instead of learning to exist in a body that had been disassembled for parts. The temporary arrangement became permanent through sheer inertia. Because her mother-in-law was helpful, she did the night feedings, changed diapers, bathed the baby, took her to pediatrician appointments, did all the things mothers are supposed to do, all the things she couldn't do. Not because she didn't want to, though some days she wasn't sure she did, but because navigating a house in a wheelchair while functionally blind with a newborn was a recipe for disaster, and everyone knew it. So her mother-in-law stepped in, and then stepped further, and further still, until one day she realized she'd become a guest in her own life. The baby had a room upstairs she'd never seen, a mobile she couldn't make out, a routine she wasn't part of. Her mother-in-law had taken over completely, efficiently, lovingly, and somehow, in the process, had erased her entirely. "You need to rest," became the refrain. "You've been through so much. Let me handle this. Don't worry about it." Every offer of help was a tiny amputation. Another piece of herself, removed for her own good. Drop a comment right now if you've ever felt invisible in your own life. Because what happens next is going to make you reconsider every helpful person you've ever known. And if you're not subscribed, fix that. This is the finale. You don't want to miss how this ends. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic. No big fight. Just a moment so small and ordinary that it took her breath away. She was in the living room, listening to her mother-in-law coo at the baby in the kitchen. The words drifted through the house like background music. "Who's Grandma's special girl?" "You are." "Yes, you are. Grandma loves you so much. We're going to have so much fun together, aren't we?" "Not Mommy's special girl. Not your mother loves you. Grandma's." And she realized her daughter was being raised by someone else. In her house, with her husband's permission, while she sat in a wheelchair in the next room, invisible and irrelevant. She wheeled herself to the kitchen doorway. Her mother-in-law was standing at the counter, the baby propped on her hip, making a bottle with her free hand. She moved with practiced ease, like she'd been doing this her whole life. "Can I try?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Her mother-in-law turned, startled. "Try what, honey?" "Feeding her. Can I try feeding her?" Her mother-in-law's face did something complicated. Sympathy mixed with concern, mixed with something else. Possession, maybe. Oh, sweetheart, I don't think. The angle is tricky, and with your vision. I want to try. A pause. Then that smile. That gentle, patronizing smile she'd come to hate. Maybe later, when you're feeling stronger. Right now, she's hungry, and I don't want her to get upset. She's my daughter. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Her mother-in-law's expression shifted. Still kind, but firmer now. I know she is, and I'm just trying to help. You've been through so much. The last thing you need is the stress of being her mother. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Her husband appeared in the doorway behind her. She could hear his presence more than see it. The weight of his footsteps, the shift in air pressure. What's going on? Nothing, her mother-in-law said quickly. We're fine. I want to feed my daughter, she said louder now. And I'm being told I can't. Nobody's saying you can't, her husband said, his voice careful. Mom's just. Your mom has taken over everything. I live in my own house, and I'm a spectator. Do you understand that? I carried this baby. I lost my legs for this baby. And now I can't even hold her without permission. That's not fair, her mother-in-law said, her voice wounded. I've done nothing but help. I've sacrificed. Sacrificed. The word came out like a bark. You've sacrificed? The silence was electric. I think everyone needs to calm down, her husband tried. Don't. She turned her wheelchair to face him, her limited vision catching just enough of his outline to see him step back. Don't tell me to calm down. Don't tell me I'm being unfair. I have been calm. I have been grateful. I have been everything everyone needed me to be. And I'm done. What do you want? His voice was strained. I want your mother to leave. I want my house back. I want to figure out how to be a mother to my own child without an audience. I want, her voice cracked. I want my life back. Her mother-in-law's face crumpled. After everything I've done, you've been amazing, she said, and meant it. But this isn't your baby, and this isn't your life. It's mine. What's left of it? Her mother-in-law left that night. Not angry. Worse. Hurt. The kind of hurt that makes you the villain even when you're just trying to survive. The house felt different without her. Quieter. Emptier. Harder. Because here's what nobody tells you about setting boundaries. Sometimes the cost of reclaiming your life is losing the people who thought they were saving it. That first night alone, just her husband, and the baby was chaos. The baby cried for 2 hours straight. She couldn't figure out how to hold her and maneuver the wheelchair at the same time. Her husband tried to help, but didn't know the routine his mother had established. By midnight, they were both crying. Her husband, the baby. A triangle of exhaustion and incompetence. We can't do this, her husband said, his voice ragged. We need help. Then we'll get help. Professional help. Not your mother. Why are you punishing her? She loves you. She loves the baby. I'm not punishing her. I'm trying to exist. He stared at her, really looked at her for the first time in months. And she saw it. The moment he recognized what he'd been refusing to see. She wasn't the woman he married. She wasn't even the woman who got pregnant. She was someone new. Someone forged in trauma and neglect and the slow realization that love without respect is just control in a prettier package. I don't know how to help you, he whispered. Start by believing me when I tell you what I need. The weeks that followed were brutal. They hired a part-time caregiver, someone who helped with the baby, who taught her techniques for managing with limited vision and mobility, who treated her like a mother instead of patient. She learned to feed her daughter propped up in bed with pillows for support. Learned to change diapers on a table at wheelchair height. Learned to exist in this new body, this new life, this new reality where nothing was easy, but at least it was hers. Her mother-in-law called daily. Texts filled with concern and thinly veiled criticism. Is she eating enough? Are you getting rest? I can come back any time you need me. Each message was a small invasion. A reminder that in her mother-in-law's mind, she was still incompetent, still needed saving. She stopped responding. Her husband noticed. She's just worried. She's suffocating. She almost lost you. We almost lost you. Can you blame her for caring? Caring looks like respect. This is something else. He didn't understand. Maybe he never would, because he wasn't the one who'd been pressured into pregnancy. He wasn't the one whose body had been dismantled. He wasn't the one who'd spent 3 months watching someone else raise his child while everyone praised him for being supportive. If this story is making you uncomfortable, good. Share it anyway, especially if it makes you uncomfortable, because comfort is what lets this happen in the first place. And hit that subscribe button. We're almost at the end, and you need to see where this goes. 6 months after the delivery, she filed for separation. Not divorce. Not yet. But space. Distance. Room to figure out who she was now that the performance was over. Her husband was devastated. I love you. I've tried so hard. I know you have. But trying isn't enough when the foundation is broken. What foundation? The part where you respected my autonomy. The part where my voice mattered as much as everyone else's. That broke at 22 weeks, and we both pretended it didn't. So, this is about the pregnancy? Still, this is about the fact that I said I wasn't sure I wanted children, and everyone convinced me I was wrong. This is about me telling you I was scared, and you telling me I'd feel different. This is about a room full of people making decisions about my body while I sat there and smiled, because that's what good women do. He sat down, put his head in his hands. I thought we were protecting you. From what? My own choices. From regret. And there it was. The core belief that had poisoned everything. They'd all been so certain she'd regret not having children that they'd pushed her into a situation where she lost everything else instead. Do you know what I actually regret? She said quietly. Not trusting myself. Not believing that my fear was legitimate. Not walking away when I still could. So you regret her? His voice broke. Our daughter. I regret the cost. I regret that everyone else got to decide what I could afford to lose. I regret that my body was treated like community property. And I regret, her voice caught. I regret that I'll never know who I could have been if I'd been allowed to choose. A year after the delivery, she sat in her apartment, small, accessible, hers, with her daughter on her lap. The baby was bigger now, sitting up, laughing, reaching for things with tiny, determined hands. She couldn't see her clearly, probably never would, but she could feel the weight of her, the warmth, the particular way she fit against her chest. And she felt something, not the overwhelming love everyone had promised, but not nothing either, something quieter, more complicated. Love mixed with grief, mixed with the knowledge that this child had cost her everything and had no idea. Would never know. Would grow up hearing a sanitized version of her own origin story. Mommy almost didn't make it, but she's so strong. You were wanted so much. Everyone prayed for you. No one would tell her the truth, that she was wanted by everyone except the woman carrying her. That prayers were offered while autonomy was stripped away. That her existence came at a price no one asked if her mother was willing to pay. Her ex-husband, because he was that now, officially, had visitation every weekend. He'd remarried already. Someone younger, eager to please, who looked at him like he hung the moon. His mother called once a month. Stiff, formal conversations where they both pretended everything was fine. How is she? Growing. Send pictures. I will. She never did. Because some distances can't be closed. Some harms can't be forgiven. Not because forgiveness isn't generous, but because some people never admit they need it. Her mother-in-law still believed she'd done the right thing. Still believed that the baby's health justified everything. Still believed that a woman's purpose is to endure, and that endurance is love's highest form. She'd learned differently. She'd learned that endurance without consent is just violence in slow motion. She'd learned that sacrifice means nothing if it wasn't freely given. She'd learned that the people who love you can be the ones who destroy you, not through malice, but through certainty, through the unshakable belief that they know what's best for you better than you know yourself. Late one night, her daughter finally asleep, she sat in the darkness of her apartment and thought about the woman she used to be. The one who stood at the altar in a perfect dress, believing in futures that hadn't been written yet. The one who sat on a bathroom floor, staring at a positive test, feeling the walls close in. The one who lay on an exam table at 22 weeks, hearing the word option and watching it disappear under the weight of everyone else's dreams. That woman was gone. Dead, really. Left behind in an operating room, while everyone celebrated the baby's first breath. This woman, the one in the wheelchair, navigating the world through peripheral vision and sheer stubbornness. She was someone new, someone forged in the specific kind of fire that comes from learning too late that your voice was never going to be enough. She didn't hate her daughter. That was important. She'd worried she might, but she didn't. What she hated was the system that had produced this outcome. The culture that treats women's bodies as vessels first and people second. The families that believe love gives them jurisdiction over someone else's autonomy. The men who mean well, but defer to their mothers. The mothers-in-law who want grandchildren more than they want their daughters-in-law to survive. She hated that this story wasn't unique. That somewhere, right now, another woman was sitting in a doctor's office hearing the word option, while everyone around her was already deciding it wasn't really an option at all. She hated that she'd survived this, and people would call her strong instead of wronged. She hated that her daughter would grow up hearing about miracles instead of learning about consent. But mostly, she hated that it had taken losing her legs and her sight and her marriage to finally understand what should have been obvious from the beginning. You cannot love someone into not existing. And when you try, someone always pays the price. This is where I need you to do something. Not for me, for the next person. Comment below if this story made you think differently about pressure, about family dynamics, about the cost of making people happy. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone who's being pressured right now. Maybe someone who's doing the pressuring and doesn't realize it. And subscribe, because stories like this, they need to be told over and over until people finally start listening. 3 years after the delivery, she started a blog. Anonymous. Simple. Just her story, told truthfully, without the sanitization everyone else preferred. The messages came immediately. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. Women who'd been pressured into pregnancies they didn't want. Women who'd lost themselves to families that loved them but didn't respect them. Women who'd survived but wondered if survival was supposed to feel this much like death. And men. Men who'd been husband in this story. Men who were just starting to understand the weight of what they'd done. Men asking, how do I fix this? How do I make it right? She didn't have answers. She just had truth. And sometimes, truth is the only thing that matters. Her daughter is 5 now. Asking questions. Noticing things. Why don't you have legs like other mommies? Why can't you see good? Why doesn't grandma visit? She answers honestly. Age-appropriately, but honestly. Mommy got very sick when you were born. The doctors had to make hard choices. Sometimes people who love each other hurt each other without meaning to. One day, when her daughter is older, she'll tell her the whole story. Not to make her feel guilty. The child bears no blame. But to teach her something essential. Your body is yours. Your choices are yours. And anyone who tells you otherwise, no matter how much they love you, is wrong. Here's what this story is really about. It's not about hating motherhood. It's not about vilifying families. It's not even about blaming individuals. It's about a system, a culture, a set of assumptions that treats women's autonomy as negotiable. It's about the space between, I'm not sure, and you'll change your mind. It's about what happens when love becomes pressure, and pressure becomes coercion, and coercion becomes tragedy. It's about asking the question everyone should have asked from the beginning. What do you want? Not what does your husband want? Not what does your mother-in-law want? Not what does society expect? Not what makes everyone else comfortable? What do you want? And then, this is the important part, actually listening to the answer. Because here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Sometimes women don't want children. And that's not a phase or fear or something that will change with the right amount of convincing. Sometimes women know their own minds better than anyone else ever could. And when we ignore that, when we pressure, cajole, guilt, or manipulate them into choices they didn't freely make, we're not showing love. We're committing violence. Slow violence. Socially acceptable violence. Violence wrapped in well-meaning advice and family expectations and the belief that we know better. But violence nonetheless. And the cost of that violence? Ask her. Ask the woman in the wheelchair, navigating a life she never chose, raising a child she loves and resents in equal measure, living with the permanent reminder that her voice never mattered as much as everyone else's certainty. Ask her what it cost. And then, finally, listen. If you made it this far, you understand something most people don't want to face. This isn't just a story. It's a warning. It happens every day, in different ways, with different outcomes, but the pattern is always the same. Pressure disguised as love, coercion wrapped in care, and women losing themselves piece by piece because everyone around them decided they knew better. So here's what I need you to do. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because these stories matter and they need to be heard. Share this video, not because it's entertaining, but because it might save someone. It might make someone reconsider. It might give someone the courage to say no when everyone else is saying yes. Comment below with your own experiences. Have you been pressured? Have you done the pressuring? What did it cost? What did you learn? And most importantly, the next time you're about to tell someone what they should do with their body, their life, their future, stop. Ask instead. Listen instead. Respect instead. Because the alternative, you already know what that looks like. And it's not love. It never was. For every woman who was told she'd change her mind. For every woman who lost herself trying to make everyone else happy. For every woman who survived but wishes someone had protected her choice instead of correcting it. This story is for you. You were right all along. If this story made you uncomfortable, don't scroll away. Stories like this stay hidden because people stay silent. Subscribe, like, and share this video so more people can see what pressure does to women behind closed doors. This isn't just a story, it's happening to someone right now.